This
This is
conference will
Mary.
now be recorded.
This is Mary Conley Eggert, founder and chief innovation officer for GlobalWaterWorks, and I'm thrilled to have with us here today Roland Wahlgren, who is the founder and the CEO of Atmoswater Research, an individual I was able to encounter in the process of learning about atmospheric water, and Roland has been studying it since 1984. It is not something new, and I'm thrilled to hear more about how he got into it. So, Roland, if you could tell us about that, what attracted you to atmospheric water as a research subject?
Well, I first got interested in water from air during the 1984 drought in Horn of Africa. And at that time, the television news was filled with images of people suffering from the effects of the drought. And as a physical geographer, I was pretty aware of tropical regions on Earth having a considerable amount of water vapor in the air, even though it might not rain in a locality, and thought that this could be used directly as a water resource. And at first, I was really excited by the thought that maybe I was the first person to have ever thought of this, but I soon did a proper literature review and patent search and discovered many people had already written papers and patented processes and devices. And then for a while, I tried to invent a novel water from air device on my own, but gradually I realized it might be more useful to bring attention to the potential of the technology by writing a paper reviewing and synthesizing the work of others. And
Wow. So
yeah,
you actually then wrote something about this to get it out in publication so others could learn.
Right. So the first publication I did on this topic was published by the journal Waterlines in the UK. They published this paper in 1993, and the journal Waterlines, it caters to field workers, people actually out there trying to solve practical problems. So at that time, I was still working with our family's industrial distribution business, so I wasn't really spending full time on the topic, but that business closed a few years later. So that then I reverted to my academic physical geographer roots and focused on building up the Atmoswater research consultancy. And
Yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah. And you've since published more, right, with water research?
Yes, that's right. In 2001, I did a longer, more comprehensive review paper, and so that was published in the peer-reviewed journal Water Research, and that paper caught the attention of a Canadian journalist who gave me some really good national media exposure, and that led to various people talking to me and contacting me, and eventually led to a major contract doing research and development for a company here in Vancouver, Canada, wanting to market its own series of atmospheric water generators. And so that led me to being fully immersed, so to speak, in the water from air field. And it was in a hands-on way where I was designing and building functioning prototypes.
Which is really such a beautiful marriage with your knowledge base and your whole research site now. And people can go to atmoswater.com and find all of the different providers of atmospheric water solutions, as well as the maps and feasibility of different solutions. And Roland, you've also shared, how to measure the likelihood of being able to use condensate systems in different regions of the world. So whatever region you're in, you can find that information out. Very comprehensive. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, well, that's great. I hope it's of use to a lot of people. So.
Well, yeah. It has been. And just, I want to get your wish for water, but you also sort of shared this this view as we look at the global water crisis of what is your hope for atmospheric water, that in your words.
Right. Well, I'm always a bit sensitive about just focusing, when it comes to water, just focusing on one solution, because there really has to be a variety of solutions working together. So, so in general terms, my wish for water would include the following different things. First of all, that countries develop legal frameworks and enforcement mechanisms to protect their freshwater resources, surface water, groundwater, atmospheric water vapor. And protecting the surface and groundwater means controlling water pollution. Protecting the water vapor means controlling air pollution. And one might think that these things have been accomplished in most countries, but as we know, in some countries, there might have been good protections in place, but they're being rolled back for economic reasons. And so that type of dilemma has to be resolved. Then the other thing I'd like to say is that, I mean, along with a lot of other people, that clean drinking water and adequate sanitation just has to be available for everybody on our planet. And another important point is that countries need to educate their citizens so that people have the understanding that clean fresh water is needed also for local ecosystem services to be sustainable. And humans are not the only stakeholders. We definitely share the stakeholder role with a lot of different living organisms, vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and microorganisms. So we have to adjust our use of freshwater resources to accommodate ecosystem health. And then another wish I have is that there's widespread adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals 6 framework by the United Nations for addressing water and sanitation challenges. It's a fantastic framework for in a very efficient way and goal-oriented way of accomplishing the things that need to be done. And then finally, I just want to say that water from air technology, it needs to be used appropriately in places where the human population has outstripped the carrying capacity of local and regional liquid freshwater resources. And I just use the word appropriately so that it not be thought of as a silver bullet type of thing, but use it where it makes sense.
Right. And I think you've mentioned with the volume of water in the air that with, everyone on the planet potentially tapping 50 liters a day, it would still only amount to a fraction of a percent of the water in the air. And
right. Yeah, this is a question that often comes up. People think that perhaps harvesting water from the air would lead to drying the air out, but that definitely would not be the case. And in any event, water is never really consumed. It's part of the hydrological cycle, and there's always evaporation, condensation occurring. So the cycle won't be affected by tapping into it.
Right, inevitably, either you may have a dry area in one region, and the air would evaporate more water based on the water down below.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I think I was particularly struck, Roland, by your comment, perhaps this is the resolution to the water crisis, but you raised another comment, it has to be viewed in context of all of the different solutions, as Felicia Marcus of California's water board often says, we need all of the above. We need reuse, we need conservation, and water rates that stimulate savings. But I think we also just need to be aware of the fact that water, as we look at it, we often talk about the fresh water available on the earth as being a finite water resource, but it's infinitely recyclable. And that's true. The dinosaurs have used it, all those plants and organisms use it, and it goes back and continues to recycle. So I think that's a beautiful part of it. Anything else you want to comment on, just on your observations with your career, just at a high level? And then I want to hear a little bit about what you do outside.
Yeah, well, my other interests are going on natural history rambles with my wife. We observe birds, animals, plants, and I also play trumpet in the North Vancouver Community Band, and spend some time on my amateur radio hobby, building and operating communications equipment.
Oh, that is a wonderful thing. And you've been so helpful, I think, in our little community where I'll be posting this, the atmospheric water harvesting user group. We like to think, hug the world with a fresh glass of water. And what I just appreciate, Roland, is that you are open to questions from anyone in the world, that you make a habit of staying on top of and sharing information that you get. And we hope we can do the same for you. And as you said, stimulate conversation across this opportunity. I just returned from India, and you can't drink any of the water there. You have to use bottled water, or you're out of water. But there's humidity and water in the air everywhere. And it would be a beautiful thing to have everyone able to, as you said, have access to clean water for drinking, for health, for babies, and to ensure we both avoid contaminants, but also address scarcity where it is needed. So I couldn't be more thankful for who you are and what you've done, Roland. And so appreciate your time here.
Yeah, you're most welcome, Mary.